What's up YouTube, Doa here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing a deck that I've been requested a lot of, and that is going to be Red Dragon Archfiend. This is going to be Red Dragon Archfiend for Genesys, which is actually quite an interesting build because it does lean itself more to being a pure build of the deck, and with the most recent points update as well, there has been some changes since the build that actually won or was the first Genesys YCS champion, which is absolutely impressive, so well done to them as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it. I'll take you through the side deck as well. It is a flat 100 points. There's a couple of cards in here that are pointed, and I'll talk you through them. Sadly, the majority of them are in the extra deck, and you've had to make some sacrifices in order to kind of fit them in and utilize them, but I'll take you through that as we go. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So, with the Resonators, you're going to be playing Free Soul Resonator. This is, of course, the best starter for Red Dragon Archfiend as a Resonator itself. And, of course, it's going to be the best one in Genesys because it is 0 points. No point allocation at all. Absolutely insane. I'm not going to go through all the effects of the Red Dragon Archfiend cards. You should relatively know them by now. If not, by all means, pause the video, check out the text on the box, or, of course, just Google up the Soul Resonator as well. Backing this up, we're on 2 Vision Resonator. I actually feel that 2 Resonator is probably more mandatory in Modern as well as in Genesys. But again, free extender. The one big thing you don't get with this particular build is you won't get access to your Bystials, which is a nice route. But then in place of the Bystials, you open up a lot of spaces, and then you also get yourself an even, well, probably a more aggressive dragon type, and I'll show you that as we go through it. For the rest of the Resonators, 1 Synchron Resonator, 1 Darkness, and 1 Crimson. I was highly considering Chain Resonator as well, which is kind of a cool option because it just gives you like extended plays as if you like to need it a little bit more. But I felt that it was more of a, the fact that it was a level 1, it was more of a additional push than an actual requirement. Moving on to the non-tuners, and then we've got Power Vice Dragon. So this has actually been pointed now, which is not surprising. So it's like 6 points a copy. The card is insane, and it possibly will get more points in the future because this is a card that's been utilized in the Light and Darkness decks. In fact, there's a very mini engine of Crimson Gaia, Soul Resonator, Power Vice Dragon, and then like the Crimson King and even the Crimson Blade Dragon as well, which loop them or work them into a Black Chaos or the Magician of Black Chaos or Black Luster Soldier. So it's actually a very abusable engine in Modern. So I would not be surprised if it starts to bridge a little bit in Genesys so that Light and Darkness can be used. But then when that happens, this card might get pointed a bit higher. Then we've got Free Bone Archfiend, again 0 points right now. This card's incredible. I really wish this gets a foil upgrade in the future. I really do. I think it's just such a useful card for the Red Dragon Archfiend strategy, and it puts in a huge amount of work. And then we've got the 1 Fiend Pieced Golem. Again, I think it's just absolutely amazing in this general build of the deck. Just being that nice extender. I did try it in Modern as well, and I didn't really have much of an issue against it. So it's kind of a cool option that lets you push a little bit further forward. And being a level 5 can actually open up the door for some different synchro plays for you. Then for the other generic kind of Fiend monsters that I'm playing, I've got the 1 Salamander Catalyzer. What I like about this is it lets you reveal any other Fiend in the hand, and then you can either special one of them and discard the other. So if I need a level 4 non-tuner, I can get this to the field. If I need a tuner to the field, I can get that to the field. And it's just another card that really can help you out if you search it out of your plays, if you've already got Bone Archfiend. And if there are plays you want to make that you can't do if you're locked into Dark Dragons or specifically those type of monsters, this can open up the door for you, but it's completely optional and it's just a card that I like to use. Next to that, I do play the Red Lotus Flame King, and I also play the Obsessive Overloop as I move this to one side. Now, generically, these are the 2 you kind of really want to be playing. The Catalyzer is just a personal choice of mine. Like, I love it in Dark Worlds, and then I was like, oh, this really works nicely into Red Dragon Archfiend. The idea of the Flame Crime is that the Flame Crime is going to be sending your Red Rain from deck to grave, and then you synchro summon and then get it back to the field. It also helps you utilize access to your Red Rising Dragon a little bit more consistently. And the Obsessive Overloop is a card that can be sent from the deck to the grave as like a Foolish Burial target. There is a card in here that we play instead of Foolish Burial because the card in here is 0 points, whereas Foolish Burial is pointed. The other is these just another options for you. This is your tuner. So if you've got a non-tuner to the field, you can get access to this one as well. And then for the last kind of, well, technically, this is a Fiend monster you can search. So in Genesys, we are playing Free Skullmeister. Even in Modern, you could arguably play the Skullmeister because it's so searchable and very easily accessible. So that's entirely up to you if you wanted to. But I just like it. It's a hand interaction for Genesys. It's very powerful in Genesys as well. And the fact that its Fiend is searchable, it gives you an additional interruption that you can add if your opponent is going to try and negate your field or break your field. The final monster that's part of like engine and pushes that isn't like a direct hand interaction is going to be your Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. This is just your aggressive, cannot be normal summoned or set monster that you search off of the back of your Crimson Blade Dragon. You can afford to cut the Crimson Blade Dragon completely. Now, the Crimson Blade Dragon is 10 points. I had to sacrifice Bestial Dispatter in order to play the Crimson Blade Dragon. And what I liked about it was it gave me access to Chaos Dragon Legionnaire, which can be an aggressor or a defender, well, disruptor, because it can either extend my field, it can let me look at my opponent's hand, rip cards from my opponent's hand, or destroy cards. Now, obviously, to get certain aspects, you are going to need light monsters to do that, and that's where your extra deck will come into play. But this one, you're mainly going to be focusing on its double dark effect. So you shuffle a random card from your opponent's hand back into the deck. So that's actually quite important because that can kind of make your opponent's end field a lot weaker. And then the one thing I've also tried to do with this one is that when I'm looking at the different type of synchro monsters that you can actively make, you can technically make synchro level 10s, which is where Gen X controller comes into play, but I'm not playing that in this build, it's just one that is 0 points. Another one you can actually make off this back one is if you're playing Soul Resonator, you can get into the Stormbane Dragon, which I actually really like this card because a lot of times your opponent will underestimate how good that card is, especially going second. And Legionnaire just gives you that additional push that you might not necessarily have. But it is optional. Now that Crimson Blade Dragon's at 10 points, it's kind of something that isn't mandatory, you have to go through, and it gives you a bit more flexibility. For the final non-engine monsters, I've got 3 Molchemy Foolos and 2 DD Crow. So this is obviously pointed at 1 point apiece. These are the last 2 points that I put into the main deck. You can sub these out. You'd go be looking at stuff like Cosmic Cyclones. But I just think as DD Crow, it's just a very effective hand interaction in Genesys. Being able to disrupt a lot of the main decks running around right now, it could be very effective for you. Then for the spells, got 3 Crimson Gaia. So obviously this is another consistency piece, getting you access to a card that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend. So that gets you into your Power Vice Dragon. It can get you into your Fiend Beast Golem. It gives you your extenders. It gives you your non-tuners or your tuners. And then of course the additional effect with your Red Dragon Archfiend is pretty insane. Then we've got 2 Resonator Calls. You could play Earthbound Prisoner Stonesweeper, but that's now pointed at 5 points apiece, which to me felt a little bit much. Resonator Call does the exact same job of that card, but is 0 points. And then the card that is basically your Foolish Burial of the Dead is Void Apocalypse. You don't have to play this card, but again, it's just another nice additional push that the deck might need. So it lets you discard a card to send a fiend monster from the deck to the grave. So the benefit of that one is that you're trying to Foolish Burial your Bone Archfiend, so it's an additional route to that one. It can send your Obsessive Overloop. It just gives you a little bit more to push through and be a bit more consistent. Then I'm also main decking 2 Twin Twisters. So there are some very powerful spells and traps in Genesys right now, and being able to chain Twin Twisters straight away can be very effective for you. And then being able to put cards like your Bone Archfiend into the graveyard can be quite useful. This can also be Mystical Space Typhoon if you don't want to be worrying about the discard because you're also playing Void Apocalypse, which is doing the exact same thing. But the idea behind that one is this is going to let you deal with 2 spells and traps, or up to 2 spells and traps. But then Cosmic Cyclone is an option, but it just requires you to use that 1 point instead. The final 3 cards that we're playing is the 1 Crimson Call. So this is obviously one of the searchable pieces off of the Crimson Gaia, the Crimson King. And this gives you access to either add if you've got the right setup or get back from the graveyard, which could be quite useful for you. Then the final 2 cards is the 1 King's Resonance and then the Champion's Pulse. So this is something I wanted to try out in the deck to see how effective it's going to be. And as this is one of the newer cards, it's during your opponent's battle phase, you get to gain 1,000 life points to then end the battle phase, which can be quite useful in some scenarios if people don't expect this card. But then an alternative as well is when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control more cards than you do, you get to special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend or a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend from the extra deck or graveyard. And if you do, negate that effect, and if you do that, destroy the card. So it's a nice negate. It lets you get access to Red Dragon Archfiend back to the field as well, which can be quite useful for you to help you push your synchro plays a little bit further forward. And it's just something that I wanted to trial out. I might even trial it out in Modern just to kind of see, but I think with Modern you play a lot of non-engine when you're looking at stuff like Harmonias, which are 50 points apiece, which is crazy, but understandable. And then you've also got cards like the Fallen in White that you'd probably play. Like, I think that is probably one of the better engines for Red Dragon Archfiend if you're trying to go Red Dragon Archfiend focused. For the synchros, so we are on 2 Red Rising Dragon. Now again, in this particular build, you can actually lean into Red Rising Dragon a lot more, which is why you're playing 2 of it. But there's a couple of cards I've had to sacrifice or cut out, like the Gen X. If I wanted to play the Gen X, I could use that. It's just making sure you're careful when you lock yourself into Dark Dragon synchros, because obviously the Gen X isn't a Dark Dragon. And there's cards that will lock you into Dragons, there's cards that will lock you into Dark synchros. You just got to make sure you navigate correctly into which route you want to get to. Then I've got the 1 Cully Belt, so the Dark Dragon level 7. And then we've got the Crimson Blade Dragon. Like I said, this is kind of optional. I just think it has a good, like, its niche effect of if it battles I think it's like level 8 or higher. Not level 8, sorry. At the start of damage state, if it battles a level 5 or higher, you destroy that monster. That could be actually quite useful for you. But more times than not, it's just adding a level 8 monster that can't be normal summon or set, being your Chaos Dragon Levianeer, and then pushing a little bit further forward. One Zarlin, so 10 points, 12 points. Crimson King, 10 points, Cry, but it's like absolutely important. It's like why we play this deck right now. Then we've got the Scarred Dragon at 0. Scarlight is optional, but it's like one of my favourite artworks for a Red Dragon Archfiend monster, and it sometimes can come up. It's basically your own in-archetypal destroy and burn card, which could be quite useful for you. And then we've got 2 Red Dragon Archfiends, and then we've got our 9s being the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, our 11 being the Stormbane Dragon, then we've got our 12s of the Red Supernova, the Red Hypernova, and the Red Nova. Now, you don't have to play all 3 of these cards. These are on the higher end of the monsters you're going to be summoning, but it does give you a couple of different options if you want to have that aggressive output. Now, keep in mind that these are your dragons, they're darks, they're synchros, they are the level 12s. You can consider to play some level 10s if you wanted to, and that's where you could open up some spaces for this one. But the best level 10s you could go for are pretty much pointed. So the Genesys is one of the best options. Bestial Dispatter is 10 points. So the only card that I was highly considering maybe I would cut to open up some space is the Mulchami Forlos. But then the Mulchami Forlos is just so effective in the game in general that it kind of felt crazy to cut it completely. And I felt that having 3 Forlos was worth it with the extra deck having a lot of flexible spots. So that's it for the entire main deck and the extra deck. Moving on to the side deck, which will contain our final points of the side deck. So at 0 points, which I think is absolutely crazy, but I love it, is a Kaiju package of 2 Kumungus, 2 Gandara, and 3 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. Now, the idea behind playing all of these, and I'll explain it as we go, is I wanted to give my opponent, in Red Dragon Archfiend, you shouldn't have much of an issue outing some of the higher end Kaijus. Like, that's absolutely fine. The fact that Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is basically a dark hole with 0 points on it is mental. But what I liked about this is if I was to resolve the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, I can give my opponent a Kumungus, and then my Gandala being a level 8 is actually quite effective because my Gandala, this card's generic. So all I need is a tuner level 3 being the Soul Resonator. I work into the Stormbane Dragon, and if I've put cards in the graveyard that are already there that can't be normal summoned or set, then my Stormbane Dragon could be quite effective for me. The Kumungus, you don't really have a bridge for it. It's just the weakest Kaiju that does not take points because Gameciel is like 3 points apiece right now. The other option, if you wanted to, you could go for the Raiden, the multi-dimensional Kaiju, being another level 8, so it gives you a couple of different options. But what I liked about this is I have the ability to resolve 2 Interrupted Kaiju Summons if I wanted to, or I resolve 1, giving me one of these, my opponent one of them, and then I can also banish that same one to get me one of the 2 copies, which can give me an additional Kaiju to either extend once I synchro this off, or a Kaiju to get rid of one of my opponent's monsters that could be a bit of a sticky situation. Sticky string, there you go. And then our final point in the side deck is 2 Dark Rule No More. You don't have to play this, but if I'm able to combo Dark Rule No More off with Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, it's complete clear. To help me deal with the spells and traps, I've got the Twin Twister, the 3rd copy. And then the final cards I'm playing is I'm playing the 1 red screen. You don't have to play this card. I just think it's a card that not a lot of people know what it does. And a lot of the thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is when your opponent doesn't know what a card does, they kind of freak out a little bit. So red screen, your opponent's monsters cannot declare attacks. During each of your end phase, you have to pay 1,000 life points, which is not optional, or this card is destroyed. You target a level 1 tuner monster in your graveyard, destroy this card, and if you do, special summon that target. Red Dragon Archery must be on the field to activate and resolve that effect. Not the activate the card, lock everything down, but the effect to tribute and bring back. Can be quite helpful for you. But more times than not, you've just got a red screen where it basically says to your opponent, you can't attack. So it slows your opponents down quite a bit, and they are forced to try and out this card. Entirely optional. It's just one of these really cheap cards that has had like 1 print, I believe, in the game. And not a lot of people know what it does, and it can be quite effective for you. And the fact that it can be quite searchable because it has Red Dragon Archfiend in its text can also give you another edge. Then the final card, before I show you the spicy side deck card, is Free Gravity Collapse. It's just basically a 0 point counter trap that can technically turn skip your opponent. And then the final card I've got is the 1 Dark Highlander. You don't have to play this card at all. This is something that you completely sub out, you can completely get rid of. If you wanted to, you could start opening up the space for... You can't really use the 3rd Dark Rule no more because it's 2 points apiece, but you could add in another Kaiju if you wanted to. The idea behind this one is that neither player can synchro summon. And why this works is as long as you don't lock yourself into Dark Dragons, which I think the only way that you do that, I believe it's Bone Archfiend. There is a card that does it. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure it's Bone Archfiend that locks you into the Dark Dragons. Where are you? Yeah, Dark Dragon Synchros. Whereas everything else is open. And the reason that works so well is that you've got Catalyzer, which is a level 4. So this plus Soul Resonator, because it needs a Fiend Tuner, and a non-tuner Fiend type monster, gets you into your Dark Highlander. So what that allows you to do is it means you can use your Power Vice Dragon to get into your Crimson King. You can then use off the back of that build up. You also have the option to make this with Vision Resonator and the Fiend Piece Golem. But the other is this is like one of the last pieces that you make. It's obviously going to be very, very specific in synchro matchups, which is why you would put this in only in synchro matchups. Now, I know cool tunes aren't as big of a factor in Genesys right now, but it's more so like if you face Red Dragon Archfiend, if you face Elf Notes, again, all going to come down to what the points shift changes in the current meta. So it is a completely flexible option, but again, it's another card that I was like, shout out to Terry, he introduced me to it. I was like, oh, that's kind of spicy if you can make it and sit on it and protect it. And the idea is that you just make Dark Highlander and it literally just says no synchro summoning. So a very good, powerful card. It's one of the cards you want to make sure you do last in your combo, remember that. But also it means that neither player can synchro summon. So once you have correctly synchro summoned, if you are bringing cards back like your Red Dragon Archfiend from the graveyard, you're not synchro summoning, you're special summoning, and then that gives you a bit more push to put the game through. And at 2800 attack, it's not exactly a weak card to be worrying about at all either. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile. Hope this is giving you a bit of an idea on how it works, and Dark Highlander 0 points as well, by the way. I hope it gives you a bit of an idea of an update. I know that this was requested a couple of times. I just wanted to make sure I got the point correction right, and obviously it was quite important to wait as well, considering that the brand new set hadn't been pointed yet. So once that set gets pointed, then you can kind of judge what new cards you can utilize and what new cards you can kind of abuse in a Red Dragon Archfiend deck. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. Always have creative freedom when you're putting your decks together. Stuff will change. Personal preference will allow you to adapt a little bit more to your style. But overall, I really like Red Dragon Archfiend. I love it in Modern. I really like it in Genesys as well. It's just something that you can play for both formats, which is really nice on top of it. And keep an eye out on Power Vice Dragon. Keep an eye out on Crimson Kings, because that engine could be coming very, very splashable very, very soon. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.